hey, there's a couple of you here. I'm just gonna paint. I don't really have any plan for this. I decided about 10 minutes ago I just wanted to go live because I hadn't done it in a year. So feel free to ask any questions. I might talk, I might just sit and paint quietly. We'll see what happens. But I'm painting the Artober Flowers for the week. I'm thinking I'm gonna try and do it all at once, but we'll see. So what do we have? Begonia, Black-Eyed Susan, Muscari, Cornflower, and Indian Paintbrush, I think. So I have it sketched out. I sketched it out a couple days ago. So I think I want to paint my center flower kind of like a peachy pink. I kind of want, my goal for this painting is just to sort of keep it all rainbow colored. Just very colorful. I'm going to have yellow Black-Eyed Susans, blue Cornflower, purple Muscari. What other colors would it be? Red Indian Paintbrush. So we'll go ahead and do like a peach color for the begonia. Let's see, I haven't painted a begonia in a while. Hi, Suzanne. My baby's awesome. Little Raphael, he was born 4 months ago, which is pretty wild that it's only been 4 months because I kind of feel like I've known him forever. But motherhood has been really amazing. I enjoy it quite a bunch. It is hard to find time to still paint, and I definitely still, like, I miss it a lot. Just being able to paint as much as I want to, but it's a good trade-off. And thankfully he usually takes pretty long naps, so hopefully I'll be able to get in a good painting session today. So I'm using my favorite brushes here. These are my series, what are they, series 7? Series 7 from Winsor Newton. I've had some of these brushes for like 7 years, and they're just my favorite. They're squirrel hair brushes, I think. Sable, I think sable is squirrel hair. But what I really like about these brushes is they actually last forever. So instead of like cheap brushes that you have to replace all the time, I like to have these pieces that are kind of more like, they're like heirloom pieces to me. I could probably leave these for my children one day if I take good care of them. No guarantees. So I'm just going between my size, what are these, 7 and 5? 7 and 5 brushes. Drop color and then smooth it around with the other one. So I'm doing a yellow ochre for these petals, which I love. I didn't use yellow ochre for the longest time, but now it's one of my go-tos. I like colors to be kind of desaturated, and yellow ochre is a really awesome desaturated yellow. And then I'm just dropping some alizarin crimson at the edge of those petals and letting it kind of bleed into it. And that feels really nice. I actually really like how that looks. So I think I'm just gonna try and, usually when I work on these paintings for this challenge, I obviously don't usually do them live, so I kind of take my time. But as I'm going to be trying to paint this before Raphael wakes up, I think today's mission might be Operation Paint Fast. Don't overthink it. It's always hard to predict how long your baby's gonna nap. Some days I'll be like, oh, he's so tired. He's good for like 3 hours. And then in like 45 minutes, he's crying. So poor little guy, he's been teething. So that's no fun. It's very sad, actually. Hey, Brianna. Thank you. I'm glad you like these. I haven't done a live in such a long time, so this is kind of fun. I think it's just good for me to, I don't know, just keep painting and just keep staying sharp, you know? And I also find that if I stop doing lives or stop teaching for Michael's, like I can get really nervous to do that kind of stuff. So it's good for me to just share. And what's kind of fun about these lives is I haven't practiced them. So like with my Michael's classes, I definitely practice those and make sure I'm really comfortable with like the curriculum and the steps and all of that. But this is just good for me because it's good for me to do it like this. I don't know exactly how it's going to turn out and what colors I'm going to use, but it's good practice and confidence, I guess. But yeah, maybe I can try doing this a little more often, like during Raphael's naps. It's as easy as just pressing record. And these brushes, when I first started using them, I actually did not like them a bunch. They were weird feeling to me because I was really used to using synthetic brushes. And synthetic brushes are more of a snappy feel to them. So when you paint, when you press down, it kind of like, I don't know, people say it has like a nice snap, like it's just a lot firmer, whereas these are super soft feeling and they hold a ton of water. And I guess it's just because they're, you know, they're not synthetic, they're actual hairs. So they hold a ton of water and they're very soft feeling. But I find that these are able to, I'm able to keep the point with these brushes way better. See, I don't know if you can tell, but these just have a really nice point to them. And I don't know, maybe because they're a little more expensive, to be honest, I probably take better care of them. That might have something to do with it. That probably has a lot to do with it, to be honest. Like, I don't know if you've ever had like cheap sunglasses versus a good pair. You probably end up losing your cheap sunglasses way more easily than your expensive pair. Like I've had this one pair of Ray-Bans for about 10 years and I don't have any other I don't have any other sunglasses. I've just somehow been able to keep those. And I think that I just instinctively value things that are a little bit higher priced, which is good because I end up just wasting less and just taking good care of a good quality product. So that's always my vote. Get something that you'll value a little bit more and it'll probably last you longer. All right, so anytime I get to the center, that's where I got to work a little bit more slowly. I really want those little details in there to not, just to stay crisp. And usually the center of a flower is a little bit darker because it's a little bit more in shadow, so I'm going to drop just a little bit more color. I love the way that alizarin crimson looks on the outer edges of these petals. It's so good. I've tried to use other pinks, but it's just always my go-to. I love alizarin crimson. Natalie, I'm using Arch's hot press paper here. I'm not super picky about the paper I use. I do prefer that whatever I use is 100% cotton. Just like I like to use natural brushes as often as I can, I like to use natural paper as well. And you get a better, I don't know, it's just, color just blends a lot better when you use real cotton paper versus like student grade paper, which is, I don't know, I don't even know what that stuff's made of, but it's not usually cotton. I always go back and forth about like if I could, you know, if I had to use student grade supplies, but just like one item was the more higher quality investment. I can't decide sometimes if I would say paper or brushes, but at the end of the day, I think brushes are probably where you want to spend your money at. If you're not sure, get good brushes because like I said, they'll last you forever. Let's see here. I need to use my brain here a little bit. Sometimes I can go into autopilot and then I'm like, wait, how am I going to do this part here? See, this brush is so thick. It's a size 7, but I'm able to get into these tiny little crevices and paint with a lot of detail. Okay, so now I just take inventory for a moment. I like how this is looking so far. Now I want to add like a darker color to the petals where it makes sense for there to be some shadow. So I'm going to grab some burnt sienna, add that to my mixture. And that's yellow ochre, alizarin crimson, and burnt sienna. I have not gone through this at all, like I said, so I'm just guessing that these might be the right colors to use. I just kind of want like a deep peachy color. And that feels right. So I'll go ahead and start back up here, drop that where it makes sense for there to be a shadow. And then I use my other brush, make sure it's just damp and clean, and then smooth that out. And then if your color doesn't look right, you can just grab a paper towel and just blot that color up real quick. I think I'm just going to add a little bit more alizarin crimson because this is more of a pink flower and it's looking a little bit too warm. So I'm adding just a little bit more of that cool pink color. Bernice said, if you could only buy 5 colors, what would they be? Ooh. Let me think. Alizarin crimson, sap green. I guess I would need a blue color. Let's go primaries first. So alizarin crimson, probably cad red, sap green, Windsor blue. How many is that? 3, 4. I'm so bad at counting. Hold on. So I'd probably do alizarin crimson, maybe Indian yellow or lemon yellow, yellow ochre, burnt sienna, sap green, Windsor blue. I think basically as long as you can just do a lot of color mixing. If you're not sure about which colors to get and you're kind of getting started, I would try out the pocket palette from Winsor & Newton. I think that there's like 10 colors in there and you should be able to mix pretty much any color you want with that. You definitely don't need to go nuts with buying a ton of paints. Some of these paints I never use, to be honest. But I use sap green, alizarin crimson, probably those two the most actually. Yellow ochre, burnt sienna. And of course I do love the Winsor & Newton range. Those are kind of my go-tos. I've used a little bit of Daniel Smith, Sennelier, I think that's how you say that brand. I have some of their paints which are really nice too. If I could only paint one flower for a whole year. Roses. I guess just because there's a lot of dimension, it's always a challenge. And I love rose leaves. I like the way that rose leaves move. And I love roses. I also really love foxglove. Those are kind of one of my favorites as well. That's a good question. And I usually have like a reference of some sort for for flowers that I'm painting, but I don't have one for this begonia. So I don't know if I'm going to live. I don't know if I'm going to love it, but like I said, I just want today to be about just being confident and trying something, not overthinking it. It's always the most enjoyable to paint like that. I don't really like when I have to feel like I have to really stick to a certain kind of formula or script, or I don't know. I can get kind of in my head when I work that way. All right, so I think I'll take a break from the begonia. I'll move on to, I guess I'll move on to whatever I feel like it. Let's see. Maybe I'll do the Lazy Susans up at the top. Lazy Susan, black-eyed Susans. That's something different, isn't it? So I'm gonna just mix some, I think this is Indian yellow I have in the corner, or it might be Windsor yellow. I can't remember what I had on hand last time. Those are pretty similar shades of yellow though. That was a good question about which 5 paint colors I would get. I want to think about that a little bit more. 5 is hard. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and just paint these petals here. I'll work quick, not gonna overthink it. It's a great brush for that, for these leaves, because it has that nice point, so I can have the tiny little lines, and then I can lay my brush flat, and then it drops a lot of color. Okay, we have another, wait, I think oh yeah, right down here. I have one more black-eyed Susan. Helps me to have a sketch to work from. Usually if I, even if it's just kind of a loose sketch, not super detailed, just having something underneath when I'm painting, I don't know, it just gives me a little bit of confidence that I know I'm gonna like the composition, that everything's gonna feel balanced when it's all said and done. It's a good way to work for me. And here's some little buds. Haven't bloomed yet. And I guess black-eyed Susans, they have pretty dark centers, so I'll grab a little bit of Perylene green, come over here and mix it with a little bit of burnt sienna so I can get that really dark brownish black color. And this is probably something you want to do, make sure that your paint is dried, because you definitely don't want this color to bleed into the petals. Or maybe you do. It's not a bad look. Just depends what you're going for. That works for me. I used to use Perylene green so much. That was kind of my green of choice. I find that I don't use it as often anymore, but I still do a lot of color mixing that leads me to that color, but I probably use more like sap green and burnt sienna to get to Perylene-ish color. And it's not really, I'm not even sure why, I just tend to do a lot of mixing. I think I enjoy the process of really having fun finding colors and mixing and just seeing where I end up. So let me think here, what's next? I'll go and do the Mascari. Okay, let me think here. So I'm just using, I think this is, I don't even know what colors this one is. Maybe Windsor Violet. I have a few different purple colors on my palette. And sometimes I don't even know what colors what colors I have there because I forget after a while. You can definitely get really detailed with this Mascari. I'll actually show you. I have one I did a couple of years ago. Let's see here. Oop, so you can see right over here, that right there was Mascari that I spent quite a bit of time getting all those details in there. I actually have a class on my website, SheilaLouise.com, where I walk you through the process of painting that whole painting, but for the sake of time today, I'll just keep these ones kind of impressionistic and not super, super detailed. So just drawing little dashes downward. And at the top of those, I'm actually going to go towards, let's see, sap green with a little bit of yellow. That's a real and yellow. I'm just going to make the tips of these kind of more green. And I'll go ahead and draw some stems. And I'll come back to that and I'll add just a little more detail in a little while. We're just doing a first pass of color here. Let's go ahead and do the Indian paintbrush. So I'm just going to do, I think this is cadmium red I have here. Bernice asked me if there's a big difference between professional and Cotman paints. I would say yes in the, what's the word I'm looking for? Like the concentration of color. Like I can use less paint and get a stronger color probably with the professional paints, but I'll be honest with you, it's not super noticeable to me. I have a mixture of professional and a few Cotman paints on here. They're mostly professional, but yeah, I think I have no problem with student grade paints. I don't like student grade brushes as much, but I don't mind student grade paints. So like I said, spend your money on the professional grade brushes. And then I would just use, I think whatever paints you use, you'll probably be able to work with them just fine. One of my friends though, she uses like the cheapest paintbrushes and she loves it. Like she is able to work really well with them, and I think to some degree it's just you get used to what you're used to, and that, yeah, just whatever works for you. It's such a, you know, it's just such a personal preference, all about personal preference. Okay, so I'm gonna drop a little more paint on these ends. And this here is the Indian paintbrush. I'm kind of cheating. This challenge was supposed to be painting every day, and that's just not how it's working out for me. I'm definitely doing like painting every few days, but just kind of whenever I have time. This month would have been so actually really hard for me to paint every single day because we've had family in town and then some friends came into town, and it's sort of been, and obviously with Raphael, I just never know if I'm going to be able to paint. So it's really worked out well for me to group my paintings. I share one every 5 days with 5 different types of flowers. And that's been a lot of fun. Okay, so let me go ahead and add a little bit of green in here. Easy enough, huh? Yeah, that one turned out good, and it was pretty easy to paint. The mascara I'm a little unsure about, but I think the Indian paintbrush feels good. So I think this is actually Windsor red, this color I'm using here. I think this is cadmium red right next to it, and then this one here is Windsor red. Natalia asked me when was the first time I tried watercolors. I don't remember the first time, but I know I used to use just Crayola watercolors. I'd buy them at Michael's or Hobby Lobby, and I also have a set from my great grandma, which I'll show you. They're called Artista, and they must be from the 60s. That looks like 60s design. But these paints were the original ones that she used. So I remember using those as a kid, and I kind of thrashed that kit, but so I've been using them for quite a long time. But I didn't really start taking it super serious till I was in my maybe like mid-20s, early 20s. Can't really remember exactly when. I remember trying to copy one of her paintings, my great-grandma. I actually have it out in our living room, but I tried to copy it, and I remember feeling so discouraged because I was like, wow, that does not look anything like her painting. I was really disappointed. And you know what? I'll tell you the truth. I still can't copy that painting, but I actually don't want to now. At that point, I was really discouraged, and I was like, I don't know how to paint like her, so I'm not a good painter. But I still can't paint like her because I'm not her. I'm me. And I always find that if I try and copy somebody else's style, I don't like it that much. I think it's beneficial to learn from people's techniques, but ultimately I think you're going to be the most happy with your own paintings when they come from you, you know? Bernice says, thank you for returning to Michael's. I really enjoy that. Thank you. I'm glad you do. They're a lot of fun, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to use their platform to share and teach. It's pretty amazing. It's definitely an honor, so thank you for that. All right, so good enough there. Let me think, what's next? I'll do this cornflower. So I'll just use Winsor Blue. I don't know if you can see it. Just a little bit of Winsor Blue. All right, so let me try and remember what a cornflower looks like. I do have some references here somewhere. Okay, so we'll go more blue on the outsides and then more purple on the inside. And these are kind of easy to paint. They're just sort of like a Y shape. Very easy to paint. And then you might want to layer up a little bit of color on the tips just to give it a little more, a little bit of deeper values. Okay, and then I want more of a purple in the center, so I will do, I guess some Winsor Violet, a little bit of this other purple color here that I can't remember the name of. As you can see, when I'm not teaching a Michael's class, I'm a lot more unsure about my process, right? I don't even know what paint colors I'm using. I just haven't looked at I have a little card around here somewhere. One time I sat and figured out what all these colors were. So it's around here somewhere. So just dropping a little bit of purple there. And then I'll grab a little bit of sap green, maybe touch into the olive green here. All right, and now I'm going to paint the green of, uh-oh, I hear a baby. My husband's out there, so we'll see if he can get him to settle back down to go to sleep. Sometimes that's hard. Sometimes it feels like I'm the only one who can get him to sleep because he's hungry. Our little baby is 4 months. He's like just a little over 4 months, but he's like off the chart for how much he weighs. He's like 20 pounds. He's like in the 97th percentile or higher, which is kind of hilarious. I love a chubby baby. Okay, actually should have kept that green because I have a couple more. Let's see, those are black-eyed Susan leaves down here. Okay, so let me think here. I want to do a begonia leaf. Hey, look who's awake. I'm doing a YouTube live, but...
Right now?
Yeah. Say hi.
Hello.
There's about 8,000 people.
Really?
No. No, there's like, how many people? I think 14?
Nice.
My husband's in here, everybody, with Raphael. He didn't feel like sleeping, I guess. Raphael loves two things. He loves milk and he loves being held. That's all we know about him so far. Sometimes he's crying and crying and we're like, what does he need? And he just wants to be held, so. It's very precious. How was your nap, bud? This is actually moving pretty quickly. I guess kind of just depends on how much more detail I want to give it. I could definitely spend like 2 more hours on it, or I could spend like 10 minutes, and both would probably be fine, but all right, let me think what else. I think over here I just have some little stems. Thanks, Dan. Dan is a really good dad. I'm really grateful. It's very, very helpful. As much as he can be. Bernice says, I miss that baby talk. Enjoy it. Doesn't last. I know. Everybody's always warning me. They're like, it doesn't last. I'm like, I know. That's why I'm just going to probably keep having babies. It's so good. I love this season of life with a little baby is so much fun. It's been a very, very happy time in my life for sure. I definitely think more about how moms are always saying like, oh, stay small, don't grow up, don't grow up, don't grow up. But you know, you think about it, because ultimately I'm glad I grew up. I didn't want to stay a baby. So I try and look at it like that. Like he'll enjoy being an adult more than he'll enjoy being a baby. So for his sake, I'm gonna try and embrace letting him grow up, as hard as it will be. But I can tell he gets frustrated. He doesn't like to be like unable to walk and talk. I think it frustrates him to see us all moving around. Maybe I'm projecting, but I don't think I would like that very much, just being strapped into a little car seat at the whims of all the adults around me. My mom says he's a lot like I was as a baby. He's very opinionated. We don't say he's opinionated. We say Raphael has his preferences. And if I'm holding him in his little baby carrier, he has to be facing out. He does not like to be facing inward. He usually doesn't seem to like being in his car seat very much, but sometimes he'll fall asleep. And he also, I think he doesn't like just being laid down on the floor. Like he would rather be held. Not that we just put him on the floor all the time, but we have one of those little baby gyms. And those will occupy him for a second, but then he's like, pick me up. So I want this begonia leaf to kind of be its own like feature. It's like its own floral feature, because begonia leaves are really amazing. They have a lot of interest in variegation. So I'm referencing a couple different begonia leaves right now. Just kind of looking at the patterns that they naturally make and picking out some colors that I haven't seen yet in my painting, because like I said, I wanted it to be kind of colorful. I think I'll add some green in here. And I'm letting my brush, I'm using like a really heavy concentrate of this sap green color. And because this isn't very wet, it's kind of giving me this sort of cool streaky look, which is actually lending itself really nicely to what begonia leaves look like. So that's kind of fun. That's a happy accident. So let's see here. A little bit of Windsor violet and a little bit of burnt sienna makes a nice burgundy. So I'm going to use those two, and I kind of want to add a little bit of depth to these veins here. little bit more water. And a little more dark purples to the edges. Yeah, this is a fun leaf. I want to paint begonia leaves more often. I think this is the first one I've ever painted, so no. One of the first though. I think I painted a begonia like 5 years ago. Yep, this is feeling like I'm getting close on this begonia leaf. So I think I'll stop for that. And let me just take a quick inventory here and see what else I want to do. I think my other leaves now by comparison look a little bit one-dimensional. So I'm going to go ahead and mix a darker green to add some, just a little more detail to my other little leaves, especially the black-eyed Susan leaves. So mixing some sap green, a little bit of perylene green, give me a nice dark green. And then I'm going to just go ahead and drop some veins along these outer leaves. Maybe add a little darkness to the back side of that leaf, so it has the feeling that it's turning away. Some veins over here. That just instantly for me gives it a lot more, I don't know, a little more interest, and it makes it not feel quite so one-dimensional and kind of boring. So I'll drop some dark color on the back side of it. And this is just that size 5 brush here. Let me think, what else? What else? I'm gonna give this little bouquet a few more stems. I do love the look of like the overlapping kind of wild feel. And these ones feel a little bit uniform. And it's nice to see some like different colors of green in there. Feels a little more interesting, doesn't it? I want to darken some of the edges of them. What else? a little darker green to these little buds. I think I want to add a little bit of something to my Black-Eyed Susans. So I think I'll grab, let's do some yellow ochre. My palette is getting super muddy with a bunch of different colors, but that's okay. That's fun. I like to see a lot of colors, and it's kind of fun because sometimes when your palette is real messy, you end up being able to create these other colors that you wouldn't have otherwise had. Everything feels very fluid to me when my palette is like this. Like, it's not so much about using one specific color, it's just kind of what do we come up with when our palette is just kind of messy and muddy. So I'm just going to add a couple of little veins to these petals. Just helps them. Again, I don't like things to feel one-dimensional or just one color. So I think having just little things like this helps it feel a little more true to life, a little more interesting. That's fun. Okay. Let me think here. Let's go ahead and add a little more dimension to the mascari. So what I'm going to do is just add like a darker purple up and inside of those little, I don't know what they are, what you would call these little things, but just these little nodules. So I'm just going to add some dark purple just inside those little crevices, so it kind of gives the impression that there's like some shadow in there. And that feels nice. Sometimes it's nice to not paint things super detailed and just paint in a little bit more of a loose, slightly more impressionistic way. Actually, that purple feels really nice with this purple of the begonia leaf. I'm really happy with how that turned out. Tying it all in, adding that purple, even a little more purple over here to this cornflower. Having color around your composition helps pull your eye around. And it's drying really light, so I'm going to drop a little more of that purple color back up in here. Add a couple leaves here and there. I love painting like this, just not really having too strict of a plan. It's so much more fun. It doesn't always turn out great, but it's a lot of fun. I probably should wrap this up because I think I need to go out there to Raphael. So just a few more details here and there. Okay, the one last thing that for me this flower is just kind of begging for is a little bit, just a little bit more deep, kind of these deep rusty colors in the begonia flower. So I'm just going to drop a little bit of color here and there. And that's kind of a, let's see, what am I doing? Burnt sienna, alizarin crimson. And I'm just going to drop it and then I'm going to come back in and smooth it out in a minute. And I'm looking at the clock and I'm just about at an hour, so there you go. That's a pretty fast painting for me because I can really take my time if I want to, but it's nice to just work on something quickly. Not overthinking this. And I'll go ahead and clean that same brush off. My size 5. Just blot it a little bit. And then you can come back in here and smooth it out a little bit. And that color will start to dry, but it'll kind of activate once you bring a wet brush to it on your paper. Okay. And I think that that will be where I stop for today. So what I'll do is I'll come back in probably maybe 20 minutes and erase it all, maybe 15 minutes. Erase all those pencil markings, and then I'll be able to take off this tape here from the side. Actually, I might just do that right now. Hi, Zuhuan. I'm probably saying that wrong, but thanks for being here. Okay, so this tape here is like some sort of ultra sticky, crazy tape. It was really difficult to detach it from the roll earlier. But here we go. Let's get this tape off. And I just use this tape because it helps keep my painting flat, keeps it from getting warped. Usually my paintings are still, just because it is paper and I use a good amount of water, sometimes it'll still be kind of buckled in spite of the tape, but it helps. Okay. There we go. So here is my pretty much finished version of, let's see, begonias, Indian paintbrush, black-eyed Susan, cornflower, muscari. So that is, what is today? Day 15 through 20. See, what happens is if I keep looking at it, I find more things that I'm like, ooh, add a little more there, add a little more there. right, so I'm going to call it a day. Thanks so much for joining me. This was a lot of fun, and I'll definitely make sure it's not another year before I do another YouTube live. So everybody have a good day or night wherever you are. Sending you love. I'll see you next time.